Hi there. So let's go ahead and talk about the nervous system, this fascinating bodily system that we have within us that controls and influences so much of what we experience throughout our life and throughout our day. So we are made up of so many systems. Think about this: our digestive system, reproductive, endocrine, emotional system, which we'll talk about later. But one of the most overlooked and disregarded body systems is the nervous system. So the nervous system is the brain and the pathway of nerves that automatically functions throughout your body. So understanding how your nervous system responds to stress is key to healing. So let's start with what's happening in the brain. We've got this prefrontal cortex, this amazing thinking part of the brain that controls our thoughts, what we're thinking about and the direction that we're heading in. It's such a powerful part of the brain. But there's more to the story with that. We also, within the middle of our brain, have this limbic system, where a lot of emotion and memory and that fight-flight response are held. And then in the brainstem, we have these automatic functions. Blinking, breathing, our heart beating, right, are controlled within the brainstem. So understanding these three parts of the brain is really important when we understand that we don't always function from our thinking part of the brain. When that stress response kicks in, that really, really strong part of the brain can actually get hijacked by what's happening within the rest of us. So that limbic system kicks in and that hijacking happens. I just want you to ask yourself this question: when have you seen moments in your life when your limbic system has maybe taken over and you've reacted instead of responding? So when my husband and I first learned about this, we did a parenting course when our kids were younger, and we began to start to tell. And one of our key lines of when it was time for the other parent to tag team in was, "Honey, I'm going limbic." Like, you could tell when that stress response was coming in, and this important part of the brain was starting to shut down, right? So when have you seen that happen in your life? And how does that actually help you understand what others might be dealing with emotionally? Parents, spouses, kids, coworkers, right? When we have empathy for others and their situation, we can also turn that towards ourselves and have empathy for our own situation. So understanding this 80-20 principle is really important. This is why you can't think your way out of everything, out of especially deeply held tension and trauma. Because when you think about that pathway of nerves from the brain to the body and the body to the brain, 80% of the information traveling on that superhighway goes from your body to your brain, and only 20% from your brain to your body. So if 80% of the information is kind of taking over what's happening up here, that makes sense. It makes sense that what you're experiencing physically and emotionally may be coming out, and you're like, why can't I think my way out of this? So understanding polyvagal theory is really helpful. This comes from who I was trained under, Dr. David Berceli, and from Deb Dana and so many others that have done amazing work on polyvagal theory. But it's this understanding that our nervous systems can function within three primary areas. And this can really expand out from here, but just really basic 101, we can function in three areas. Usually we hear about fight, flight, or rest and digest. It actually goes a little bit deeper than that. So within our nervous system, we have the vagus nerve. We can be in one of three states: connect, protect, or disconnect. Okay, so we'll talk about what that looks like a little bit more. But connect is this ventral vagal part of the parasympathetic nervous system. You don't have to remember all these words. I just mainly want you to remember and think about times where you've been in connect. And then when you've been in protect, which is fight, flight, this mobilizing, I'm moving towards something or away from something. That's your sympathetic nervous system. And then within the dorsal vagal part of the parasympathetic nervous system is disconnect. which is that freeze response. So connect, protect, disconnect. So where do you see yourself today? Or if you think about even yesterday, throughout the week, how have you seen yourself in these places of connect, protect, and disconnect? Here's what that can look like a little bit more. So when we have prolonged stress or a big event that happens, our stress response kicks in, right? And we can have our nervous system kind of activated and maybe even stuck, if that loop isn't closing, stuck in this sympathetic part of the nervous system, which is fight, irritation, anger, flight, anxiety, continually always feeling on, this hypervigilance, chronic pain, because if I held up my coffee mug for 3 days straight, and I held tension there, I would get really sore, right? So when we hold a lot of tension in our bodies, chronic pain can come from that. Difficulty sleeping, because our nervous systems are so geared up and it's hard to gear that back down. And emotional flooding, meaning like big emotions that come out. And often when there are big emotions that come out, or maybe there's something that has, if you've run in fight flight for so long, the body automatically kicks us into more of this parasympathetic freeze, which is freeze, depression, loss of enjoyment and motivation, chronic fatigue, like the body just literally like gears down, poor digestion, hopelessness, isolation, low productivity, even like just this inability to like move forward in something. That can happen within that parasympathetic ventral vagal part of the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, this is important to understand because a couple things. People often ask me, can I be in both? Yes, you can, especially if you're running so high for so long and then maybe some big emotions come out and your system's like, oh, that was too big. And then this like that freeze response, or like, okay, we got to like shut things down here for a while. We'll go into that freeze response. But here's the hope in this. Over time, as we're working with our nervous system, we can actually start to grow and increase this space in the middle. This is the connect space, the calm, the love, joy, peace, all of those things, being able to connect with other people, to make really good eye contact, to engage with them. That all happens here. So over time, we begin to come more out of that fight, flight, and freeze into the connect part of our nervous system. And that window of tolerance can increase. So a lot of times I'll have clients come back to me after we've worked together for a while, and they were like, they'll come back and say, this thing happened, and I know that would have whatever, set me off or shut me down, but it didn't this time. And that's because that window of tolerance has increased. So what are some physical responses to stress and trauma that you may be experiencing? It's helpful to understand body armoring and bracing. So maybe there's pain held in a specific region of the body. This concept or this, I was just working with a gal that she had so much tightness like around her diaphragm and in her abs, in her abdomen, and there was a lot of tension held there. That is like a body armoring or bracing. That's your body preparing for like a fight, preparing for something that's going to happen that may have actually happened in the past, may have not, but your body thinks it might happen. And it's often connected to the psoas muscle. The psoas muscle is deep within the hips. It's the only muscle that connects the top and bottom half of the body. You may experience tension in your inner thighs, hips, low back, but also all that tension can kind of travel up into the shoulders, neck, jaw. When I work with people who are like, they have a lot of tension headaches, I'll always ask them too, like, do you hold a lot of tension around their hips? And they'll be like, no, oh, yep, I do actually. That's all connected. Your psoas muscle, that muscle that's the only one that connects the top and bottom half of the body, that is really engaged when our nervous systems are in fight flight. Because you think about what your body's preparing for. Your body's preparing to get the heck out of there or to fight and kick, run, whatever. So that's why tension is held there. Other physical symptoms that you may experience: tingling, shaking, your heart racing, sweating, all these physical things that were like, why is this happening to me? Can all be linked back to the nervous system. So if there are things that are happening within the body and it's often tension related, we need things to be able to release that tension and gear down what's happening in the nervous system. So a really nice tool is just the simple somatic release. Somatic just meaning body based. If what we're experiencing as far as anxiety, depression, chronic tension and pain is happening in the body, then we need solutions that work with the body. If our body remembers and our nervous system remembers what our minds forget, we need to help what's in our body be released and discharged. So let's do this together. We're just going to take a little bit of a breath, relax a little bit, and I just want you to unclench your jaw, drop your shoulders, shake out your arms and hands, just maybe even a little bit of shoulder shrugs. If you think about how our bodies are automatically responding and releasing stress, think about crying. When you get a good cry, right? You get a good shoulder shake. It actually feels pretty amazing afterwards. That's helpful. Follow along with what your body is already doing to release stress. Moving your eyes side to side. So you look out to one side and you could hold this 30 seconds or a minute. And you're looking for something like a deep breath. Maybe even your ears will pop open. Maybe you'll relax a little bit. There are lots of nerve endings and muscles around your eyes that kind of tense up when your nervous system's in fight flight. And then you can look the other way. Often with this, when you see people do it, they'll also kind of lace hands behind the neck and just kind of brace the neck. You don't move your head, you just move your eyes. So you can try that too and see if that's helpful. Put your hand over your heart or over your stomach. Often these things, this gives sensory input. It just gives information to your nervous system and tells your body where you are in space and time. Often when we're disconnected from what's happening down here, it can be really calming to do something like this. Take 3 deep breaths. Get some good oxygen to your brain and to your system. Yeah, and then just stretch however you feel like you need to. You can do this standing up and stretch a little bit more and shake everything out real good. When we hold so much tension in our bodies using shaking, vibration, all of that is really helpful. It's doing the opposite. When it comes to shaking, that's actually a part of what I teach with people. It's so deeply wired in our biology. And think about what we already use. We use massage guns. We have the vibration tables or vibration plates, or think about what we do with babies, right? We rock them, we put them in the little vibration chairs. Those are all things that are really soothing to our nervous systems. That helps babies. It helps us too. So if you've caught on to like, man, there are some actually like physical symptoms, emotional symptoms, things that I am experiencing, this makes sense. For sure, definitely like check with your medical doctors, all those things. There can be medical explanations, but all of the symptoms can also be linked to your nervous system health. So there are 2 steps that happens when we work with the nervous system. We need to release what is held from the past, all that information that's being stored up for years, decades, maybe a lifetime. And we also need to strengthen the nervous system. Just like a muscle, you can strengthen the nervous system. You can strengthen the capacity of what's happening. Like I said this before, I've heard people say the things that used to bother me don't bother me anymore, because essentially what's happened is they've built capacity in their nervous system to handle stress as it comes up. So if this was helpful for you and you're like, what can I do next? Continue with what you've learned. Check in with yourself throughout the day and go, okay, where am I at in my nervous system? And am I in connect? Am I in protect? Or am I in disconnect? Watch for, maybe times when you're in these stressful moments, and use that somatic release, like, oh, just a quick shake out, couple of breaths. Okay, yep, I'm ready to re-engage. Every time we do that, we're closing the loop on that stress response. And it might be helpful to take my toxic stress quiz. You can find that on your website, or you can find that in the bonus section in this training. And continue research. So understanding more of polyvagal theory and the window of tolerance can be helpful. There are other experts out there like Peter Levine, Deb Dana, Bessel van der Kolk, all these people who have pioneered this work for decades. And as always, you can reach out to me for any questions that you have and ways that, we could work together and releasing and discharging and healing this beautiful system that we have in us, our nervous system.